Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Group Chat. We got some special guests. We got Zach White coming back from Sinai, and of course, just a popular guest on the pod, always giving insightful statements. Comes up with a hot one-liner that we're going to talk about. And then we have the founders of Truff Hot Sauce on, talking about their business, how they got started, and how they've scaled. And of course, the hottest LA Tech Week party is happening Thursday. Make sure you RSVP, send that text, head over to our Instagram page or mine and get the details. Send a text. We will reveal the location tomorrow, but it's 6 p.m. in Santa Monica. A shitload of people have RSVP'd, so I think it's going to be a rager. A big LA Tech Week rager, which could be an oxymoron. But let's get into it.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, Group Chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of Group Chat. We got a special guest, Zach White, back in.
Back at it.
By heavy demand. Everyone loved any episode with Zach in it. It makes us sound smarter. So happy to have you back. Anand's, fake golfing at Yellowstone.
The richest.
Drama might be really golfing now. I don't know where he's at. But, given that it is LA Tech Week, the biggest tech week in LA history, I don't know if this is the first LA Tech Week.
I think it's the first and biggest
okay,
and
first
smallest.
One. And, we have our mega big grand Group Chat event that we're going to do Thursday night, 6 p.m. If you have not got the details for that, we were originally going to do it at this one venue, and like hundreds of people RSVP'd on the first day. So we moved it to a much larger venue. So go on our Instagram. There's a phone number you have to text. I'll say it at the end of the episode also, but if you want to come, you should come. There's going to be incredible people there. So I think it's going to be a big party, 6 to 8 and in Santa Monica. But what I really wanted to talk about, which I think is kind of like blockbuster news in the venture world.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Neumann, aka Jared Leto, somehow raised $350 million at reportedly more than $1 billion valuation for his new concept in real estate called Flow, which I read Mark Andreessen's memo or blog post around it. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like his thesis, Mark Andreessen, is that Adam Neumann, and this is Mark Andreessen saying this, Adam Neumann reinvented the way we work and the way work culture kind of exists today. That's debatable. But why can't he reimagine the way we live? And the argument was around basically it's impossible to own a home today. Rents are obviously exploding. And there's this thesis around how we should be living. If I'm correct, Adam Neumann grew up in a commune.
Yeah, kibbutz, I believe.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
In Israel.
And so feel like he's trying to bring that to America.
Yeah, that was also the vibe for WeWork.
Yeah.
A lot of it. I think this is super interesting. I think that it goes to show how charismatic of a guy, at the very least, he is, right?
Incredible salesperson.
Unbelievable. He can raise money from anybody at any valuation. I think that it was interesting to see the blowback from people. I mean,
scorched earth.
There was both, though. I think I saw both sides of the coin. I think that a lot of people quickly jumped to the easiest conclusion, which is they don't know what they're doing and they think that they're just burning money on fire. But I think that I am on the camp that this makes more sense than it doesn't make sense to me, which is saying a lot because WeWork in a lot of ways didn't make a lot of sense to me when it was happening. But yeah, I think that this is super interesting, and I really do appreciate at least the fact that Mark and Ben can be contrarian thinkers, because there's no way that they didn't know that this would be the blowback from it all. But they still, thought that it was interesting enough to support. And so I find that really, really interesting. And there's a lot of inside baseball that makes this make more sense. One of the things is that I think that and this is all just hearsay, so don't quote me on this, but Adam Neumann, those first, like, I believe it was 3,000 properties
He bought?
Yeah, he had bought with his own personal money, and then he rolled them into the company.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah, so there's a lot of his own personal money behind this project as well, and I think that really helped Andreessen get a lot more comfortable with it. So
I'm sure the structure is.
I'm sure it's crazy, and I'm sure it
they're
really
not just
benefits
letting him.
Yeah.
Just not riding this guy at $350 million.
So I think that there's a fair amount of he pretty much seeded this business with his own money, and to the tune of, from what I hear, is like 9 figures plus. And so, he has a fair amount of skin in the game, and so at the very least, like. I think that at least contextualizes the story a little bit differently, as opposed to this, billionaire who got away with all this money is now doing the same thing again with no real, downside risk. And so I think that that's at least slightly different. But yeah, interesting. It was an interesting article to wake up to yesterday for sure.
Yeah, and I think it was really. I understand the quick knee-jerk reaction of like, how can you give this guy money? Which debatable on whether you should or should not. The blowback that I thought I didn't expect was the amount of people that kind of fall in the underrepresented camp and felt like, how did this guy who basically scorched WeWork to the ground get away with billions of dollars, and then he continues to get opportunities while other, whether it be women or people of color, don't get those opportunities.
Yeah, well, I think that's also like a basic misunderstanding of the math that underlies venture capital generally.
Exactly.
Just because Andreessen, to actually put $375 million into a company, it has to have a certain level of there's certain bars that it has to have. This is a multiple time founder. His first company at its peak was like $50-60 billion, I believe. He's done this before. He's raised the money. He's done the thing. For Andreessen to say, actually, instead of putting this $375 million into this one guy who has, a fair chance of 10 to 20xing, from here at $1 billion.
Yeah.
That is like that's a much easier story to sell their LPs than saying, oh, we'll take the $375 million and give 10 million to 37.5 underrepresented founders who are doing this for the first time and help them break into the industry.
Yeah.
Like that math makes much less sense, even though like socially, if you just view it at the surface level, it does make sense why people could be upset, put off by that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I agree. And I think either way, what's funny is I saw a founder say, I would never take money from them, and because of this, and
it's
I
cap.
was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Cap.
What?
It's cap, straight cap.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, like that's an insane statement. In fact, my initial knee jerk was like, okay, Andreessen's swinging big. That's the company I would want to go to.
For sure.
Because that means they have real conviction. I actually think I admired, look, it remains to be seen if this is a good idea or not, but at least they got the balls to do it.
Totally.
And that's what venture is. Venture is big swings. And they have too much money, and it's hard to deploy that kind of money.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope Andreessen is like keeping a little blacklist up there in Silicon Valley of all the people talking shit, because 10 years from now, I'm sure this is going to just be a blip on the radar of what Andreessen does. And, to say that you're not going to take money from them is kind of just like, if you want to be a successful technology founder and you're shooting yourself in the foot out of the gate, just like that, I don't necessarily understand it. I understand people's like discomfort with the situation, but it's the people are going so overboard with this and like drawing all types of parallels that I don't think really exist. But yeah,
because at the end of the day, he did not commit fraud.
No, he was cleared in a court of. Yeah, he was cleared in court. He's never charged with anything.
Yeah,
like SoftBank has pretty much written it off and said that they're fine with the outcome of how it went. The SPAC went fine-ish. Like
it's alive.
It's still there. Yeah. So it's like he fucked up, but he wasn't like criminal in any kind of way, and he still generated billions of dollars for the original investor. So it's like, you should take that bet every time, in my opinion. But
I think it's more of just the world not, and this is happening in closed doors, and it's been happening in closed doors for years. There were people who, have had, terrible outcomes still get backed. And you know, we were joking years ago that like, I think Anand may have said that, I think he may have said like Elizabeth Holmes would probably still get backed today.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree. I think she comes fresh out of jail, you know, California dreaming.
Yeah.
She's getting a check.
Yeah. Which kind of goes to show how much like public perception also helps with this. I think that We Crashed and the Theranos one. And I think that
Adam Neumann came out very endearing.
Yeah, it's like
We
almost
Crashed.
counterintuitively helpful to these people that, you know, they have like such an in-depth sort of look into what went wrong. And I think that it almost maybe makes people more comfortable, because if you have like this piece of content out there that kind of details every single thing that you went wrong, like hopefully what are the chances that you'll make that exact same mistake twice, you know? Because there's so much accountability at that point. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very interested to see how it is. I think that this is...
It's like a REIT though, it feels like.
Well, what I was about to say is I think that this is like very scary for the middle-class American. When institutions start to become like these massive landlords, I think that really creates a paradigm for the individual renter that's like very scary, because you don't have a lot of leverage in that instance. Yeah. And so, you know, I hope that I hope the BlackRocks of the world and the Flows of the world don't kind of ruin the rental market for middle-class Americans, because it's already tough enough as it is. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for sure.
Yeah, so this, I think it's like Atlanta, Nashville,
South Florida.
Okay.
Which seems like all of the exact places that 2008 like hit the worst.
Yeah, exactly. What's interesting is they're saying that he acquired this property earlier this year, which would arguably be the peak.
Sure.
Right? Like I would say spring of 22 is the real estate peak of recent times. Yeah. I don't see it necessarily skyrocketing from here. Yeah. It's probably maybe it flatlines and maybe it's, you know, we don't know what the drop potentially could be. But what I was really kind of intrigued at is like, this is making a bet that real estate potentially has venture returns, right? Like Andreessen is thinking, that was actually more of a confusing thing for me because a REIT cash flows and pays its big dividend, and like that's why people invest in it. They're obviously thinking, like you said, this is a 10, 20xer.
Sure. But this could also, in a lot of ways, if you look at it, could be like a macroeconomic hedge, you know? Because if you need people renting places isn't going necessarily anywhere. And if you have that quantum of cash flow, it turns into almost like what Berkshire does with Geico kind of thing, where you now have this incredible cash flowing business that you can sort of use it to plug the holes in other places. I don't really know how it ends up looking, but the fact that if you look at it over the last 6 months, Andreessen has now basically taken very strong stances in public markets. They've always had a strong stance in private markets, and now they're, you know, at least putting a lot. This is, I think, their largest check ever behind real estate. So it shows at least a diversity. Well, I mean, at that point, at 38 or whatever billion they have now, it's like you can't not diversify that book. And so I think that they're trying to do it in the most technologically adjacent way that they know how. Yeah. But at the end of the day, this is just good risk management in a sense. Like instead of just investing straight software, whatever, you kind of do have to diversify it. It is interesting. So yeah, they're like almost like a multi-asset manager now. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And I just think people also don't know the structure of the deal. So to say that, I don't think Andreessen is being reckless. No, because their lawyers are doing the paperwork. And if he rolled in if he actually rolled in all those units, even if he didn't, they're structuring in a way to protect themselves. For sure. First money in, they're going to structure ever. What is going to happen now? You don't think that guy got 50 phone calls today?
More. Yeah, his phone today is blown the fuck up for sure.
Blown up. Everyone, what happens as soon as you announce a fundraise? More people want to give you money.
Totally. And
it's like instant.
Especially for this kind of thing, because, you know, there's already so much clear, there's so many clear new entrants into this part of the real estate market, especially with like the large private equity funds. Yeah. That there does exist a world in which this just gets bought out at multiple billions just for the underlying real estate value by a BlackRock, where it would just be a blip in the system anyway. So yeah, there's like a lot of there's a lot of outs here, which makes it make more sense for me as well.
Yeah, I think interesting to see how it all plays out. Interested to see how Adam Neumann actually operates, because now he's back in the public. So is he the same character he was? Like, are we seeing a CNBC interview tomorrow? like, or is he like a humble man now? And
I heard he's still not wearing shoes, so that might.
But he's, I mean, he's definitely not living in New York. He's like living, I think, in like Hawaii or something.
Yeah, he's living on a plane, a PJ between multiple places. But interesting guy.
I mean, I think for like your average person that's probably extremely liberal, Adam Neumann drives you nuts because he is a white male billionaire that kind of fucked up and got the best chance ever.
Sure. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, I forget who did the series, The Seed and the A of WeWork. I think it was Kleiner Perkins, maybe.
Okay.
They made so much money. They made all the money.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I get it that, it's easy to say, oh, like, look what happened at the tail end of this. Look what happened to SoftBank, how much they burned for SoftBank. A lot of this was SoftBank's fault too. They overinvested. They inflated the valuations because they needed to put more money in. So this is, I think it's very easy, like, and the media kind of positioned it such that it was like all his fault and everything, but there was so many external factors.
There was a lot of people complicit in it.
This couldn't have happened just through one person. It was a lot of people.
It was too big. It was $50 billion business.
Exactly. Yeah. And there were secondaries that were going even higher than that. So this is multiple people were complicit in this. It's not just Adam Neumann's fault. And if you have a problem with this, you probably have a problem with much more of the venture capital industry than you really realize. So,
or just all of finance.
Yeah, all of finance is a fair point too. So
the other theory I had was he didn't even do the pitch. He sent Jared Leto in.
That would be really cool.
I mean, fuck it. By this point, like, just send Jared Leto.
Something I know is that Jared Leto is spending a lot of time around tech people right now. So, wouldn't surprise me.
He's like, I raised the money for this guy. I do believe the TV show made him more endearing.
Of course. Yeah. Nobody would have known anything about, if you had only had the
documentary.
Yeah, the documentaries and the articles, very dark.
Yeah.
But the fact that, he was like in that TV show, he was extremely charismatic. There's a lot of funny parts. There's a lot of like humor and bright points.
Family guy, he's got wife, kids, and like
just like
he seemed like he cared about his family.
He was positioned as like an eccentric who maybe like flew a little too close to the sun. That was it, and like America loves people like that. So
America does. Amazing. Similar, if you have a problem with Adam Neumann, then you may have a problem with Bed Bath & Beyond trading. I saw something like 400 million shares today. 400 million shares. Yep. The market cap of this company is like $1.6 billion. Yep. I think it traded 10 times over. It's absolutely bananas. I don't even know who Ryan Cohen is, but he's an investor at some fund. He went and bought like some aggressive call options when the stock for the price to be trading at like $60 or $80.
Right.
And it
was Ryan Cohen not the WAG and GameStop guy, or is that somebody else?
Oh, is that okay?
Is that who it is? Because that would make sense.
Okay, let me actually look that up right now because that would make a lot of sense. But he bought these aggressive call options at $60, $80. The stock's trading, I think, now at like $20. It was at like 10 like 2 days ago.
Yeah, so he was the Chewy CEO, and then he went to GameStop.
Yeah.
So this guy basically could start a cult because anything that he's basically like the Nancy Pelosi of Wall Street bets. Yeah, because anything that he does, people automatically follow on, and it was his. It was his shift to becoming the CEO of GameStop, and then all of the things that he put behind, all of the things that he said he would do to GameStop that really had. I forget what the something kitty. I forget the specific Wall Street bets user who actually did but Ryan Cohen was like a central part of his entire thesis. So I think that what is now happening is Ryan Cohen is a meme in himself for this community, and that anything that he does and any sort of really aggressive move that he makes, people are going to probably follow on and turn it into. And I'm sure that he probably realized that there was similar characteristics about the float and the short interest in Bed Bath & Beyond, and other people probably saw that too and saw that they could do this. I think that this is going to be a something that happens for quite a long time now. Oh, this is going to be daily practice. Yeah, like it's too much money. This guy bought 1.6 million options with strike prices of $60 and $80. It was trading at $5 3 weeks ago.
20.
Exactly.
It traded a high of 28 today.
So he's up thousands of % on those options. Yeah.
I made $200 million today. Oh my God.
So yeah, I mean, Ryan Cohen should start a cult. That's my perspective on it all.
And he owns 10% of Bed Bath & Beyond.
Right.
On top of it.
Yeah. So yeah, he's going to continue to be like the meme king of like wherever he goes, the Wall Street's bets will follow.
And the other interesting thing about this deal, or this trade, Citadel sold or owns 2.3 million shares, and I think they dumped it today.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure a lot of it was for like market making purposes, and they were just holding a bunch of like between 10% of $5, up or down, just to make the market or whatever the percent was. And then today, all of the shares that they were holding to make the market quadrupled or whatever, and so
they sold it.
They sold it all.
And that's, Ken Griffin, like he's the guy that everyone wanted to beat against. Yeah. That guy never loses.
No, it's impossible. At that size, it's impossible because you are the market.
You are the market. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, just the sheer volume, like the entire Wall Street was paying attention to Bed Bath & Beyond, which is basically insolvent.
It's hysterical. And I can't even imagine like, I don't know anything about like the earnings or what their guidance was, but I can't imagine it's good. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We talked about it a month ago. They're so over inventoried. They're losing so much money that they started cutting power at some of their locations to save money during the slow times of the day.
Yeah.
Like that's how tight the budget
You know what's ironic about this whole cycle, or like maybe not ironic's the right word, but you know what's funny about how this cycle works is it's usually like businesses that are legitimately bad, GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, that people understand are bad, that their future prospects are not good, so they start to short the business because justifiably they believe that the future prospects of the business are not good enough. And so many people pile onto that trade that the short interest gets so high that people on the other side of the coin who don't give a fuck about the business prospects at all figure out a way to financial engineer it into using the short interest against it and then just popping off these stocks. So it's actually ironic that the worst businesses are in fact really the best businesses to do this meme kind of trading on. Yeah.
I mean, there are so many piles of shit businesses you could do this to.
Oh my God. Yeah. Which is why I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. Because this is like 70% in a day or a couple 100% in a couple weeks. Like that's crypto pricing with much less chance of getting fucked over because it's, all
it's
regulated.
Highly liquid.
Yeah. And it's highly liquid.
Man, unbelievable. Well, the exact opposite, Walmart reported earnings and it's crazy. Their business is still good because you're seeing a lot of retail companies struggle. I mean, their profits declined a little bit, but all in all, their CFO came out and said they're still seeing a relatively healthy consumer. But what they're seeing is that there are places where they're trading down. So one example they used is previously buying deli meats was like a big part of their business. Now they're seeing them transition into canned tuna and chicken and even beans. And those sales are up 25% this quarter. So it made up for any lag in some of these higher price categories. And they're just buying more essentials and sharper price essentials. But the volume of it is so big that it's making up for any issues they have in other categories.
Yeah.
That was such a big move when like Walmart and Target pivoted to groceries. Basically hedges against when there's no consumer discretionary money. You can, groceries is always thriving.
Stable. And I think, I like to look at Walmart as basically like an index of the world, like they literally have everything. They have auto parts, like whatever you could think of, they have inside of Walmart. And so to look at the specific sectors inside of Walmarts that are soft or gaining demand, I think is actually a pretty good proxy for the country at large. And so, I'm sure that is indicative of a lot of people where they're having to cut back on, things that are maybe a little bit pricier, like fresh deli meat, and have to go to like the packaged stuff. That seems like a trend that would make sense given the macroeconomic climate for sure.
The other thing they said was, so there was $11 billion increase in inventory, but they said 40% of that number was just due to inflation, just higher prices.
Yeah.
So that should correct at some point.
For sure. Has to.
Like it's not realistic that 40%. So like if you're forward looking on Walmart, they're probably in a good position. They also said encouraging start to back to school and not, they said it was not strong, but encouraging. and they said school supplies is more essential than apparel this year for the kids. But the fact that they said it's encouraging is good. And they said that clear impact of gas prices they saw in May and June with higher prices. But as fuel prices come down, they started seeing an uptick in general merchandise. People don't realize that 30, 40 cents is immediately goes to consumer discretionary.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like instant.
Yeah. Especially on like like if you have a 15-gallon tank that you're filling up twice a week, that like begins to add up on a monthly basis. And like all of that usually just goes straight back into discretionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's instant too. So people are seeing it because even my local gas station has probably dropped like 70 cents a gallon.
Oh yeah, same. At least, I mean, $1 for me. Like it was solid, like high sixes before.
Yeah, maybe it is $1.
Yeah, now it's like fives and mid fives now. Yeah.
And I was down in Vernon yesterday. I saw a gas station for $4.69.
That seems insane. That seems like almost rolling the clock back to like a different era.
Back to the future.
Yeah.
But, the other comment, their CEO, Doug Millen, said that they're seeing their wealthiest customers, people make over six figures, being affected in their purchasing behavior because of inflation. I think that's, Zero Hedge said, yes, six figures is now the new lower middle class.
It is. That's not even a joke, especially with inflation.
Yeah.
I think that it's unfair to actually say like a household that makes 100K is like a wealthier family in this day and age, like
especially not in a big city.
Yeah. So if you're in a metropolitan area, that's,
and you're a family of four and you make,
it's impossible. But I've noticed this even amongst my peers. Like I would say that, the people that I work with are generally pretty well off. And I've noticed them just cutting out, like, I think a lot of stupid purchases where you're just like, like, I don't really give a fuck about this subscription that I have for whatever, because I use it once a year and it kind of just like makes me happy that one time a year. I think like that kind of stuff I'm seeing a lot of my peers cut away and cut out.
I cut like 5 streaming services.
Yeah. Like I cut like members clubs and like random like subscriptions, tech subscriptions to things that I don't really
like
care
a
about.
Weird
Yeah.
Substack.
Yeah, like mediums and Substacks and like like all of these different things. And so I myself am doing this, so I could imagine that there's a lot of people in the country that fall within this age range or income range doing the same. Yeah,
I think to that point, like $100,000 a year for a family 20 years ago was like,
this is the American dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, it's like very, very difficult.
Yeah. I would say it's almost like paycheck to paycheck in some places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an article that's Bloomberg was
I saw that.
Where like $250,000 and above, like 60% are living paycheck to paycheck.
Because at the end of the day, what people don't really realize is that you're just, for most people, as your income scales, so do your expenses. And like, it's just until you reach a certain point where it just doesn't matter anymore, like they kind of scale proportionally for a lot of people. Yeah.
That's fascinating. In like kind of surprising news, China cut their interest rates yesterday.
Is that surprising? I mean, I guess it is surprising, but
given that everyone else is increasing them, they're so contrarian. They're the Peter Thiel of countries.
But the second half of this article probably would illustrate why, maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really around the real estate collapse that's happening. Builders are under enormous amount of pressure. So many people are defaulting on their mortgages in China, and obviously their view is, hey, let's lower those monthly payments, get the homeowner to continue to support, all of the kind of, the money that's sitting in real estate. I mean, what was the percentage of GDP Chinese real estate? Some staggering number.
Yeah, it's like the majority of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just like, it's just engineered, right? It's like apartment buildings and
ghost towns.
Made for nobody in particular. Yeah. And so what I think is happening here is that as the real estate crisis begins to get worse and all of these, because what was the, it escapes me, but remember there was a massive government-backed real estate developer like maybe 6 months ago.
Evergrande?
Yeah, Evergrande. Yeah. So like we've never really heard about what happened to Evergrande.
Yeah, they missed payments, everything.
But what I would assume happened is that they got backstopped by the Chinese government for some large amount of money at a really low rate. Yeah. Just to help them through and so that the whole system didn't collapse. I think that what we're seeing here is a a more consumer version of that, where it's like the government has probably been doing these backdoor deals to these large developers for quite a long time, giving them basically zero interest rates to make sure that they stay afloat, and that this large part of their GDP remains stable and liquid. But I think that that's probably, those issues have probably trickled down to like the individual developers and like individual real estate holders. And so to make sure that it doesn't become kind of like this toxic cesspool of just everything, or I'm not sure that this necessarily fixes that, but it does seem like it prolongs the problem for a little bit.
I mean, and then on top of that, China's having the worst heat wave in 6 decades. And so they're literally shutting factories down to ration on electricity. And I mean, it's like half the country is being affected by this. And I don't know how many factories and how many kind of enterprises are being affected, but like there's flooding, there's obviously heat waves. I mean, it feels like China is getting hit every which way financially, and obviously now with whatever is happening on the climate side. Like,
it seems incredibly dystopian over there, honestly. Like you see the banks are shutting down, people lining up at the banks. You see all of these natural disasters, all of this like government overreach that seems to get higher and higher. You know, because like at a certain point, even 10 years ago, maybe China was viewed as like a pretty progressive Eastern country, right? Like, and you know, there were a lot of people who were like even moving there because they felt like you could build and like build massive companies there.
I wanted to take our business there. We had a prominent American venture fund that is huge in China basically say, will you take all your brands and concepts and build this in China? And we went and tried to make sense of it and to figure it out. And we were seriously like, I remember talking to my wife, I'm like, if we lived there for 2 years, we might be really rich. And like, I had seriously contemplated that as like a real thing.
That was a really pervasive thought in Silicon Valley as well, which was, you know, maybe your business doesn't work here simply because there's not enough scale. And so just take it to China and see what happens. And I don't know anybody that is not ethnically Chinese who would probably do that now.
No, and even I know Chinese entrepreneurs, businesses based in like Guangzhou that are never going back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so... yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that I'm not sure, like the thing that I really care about when it comes to all of this is the Taiwan issue and how this affects sort of their like ambitions towards Taiwan. And hopefully this maybe slows it down a little bit just because, you know, if you're dealing with enough at home, kind of opening up this new theater of conflict seems like maybe it's not the best idea. And so, you know, at least my perspective is that hopefully all of this stuff really gives them a little bit more on their plate. And so that, you know, trying to figure out the whole Taiwan thing becomes much less of a pressing issue.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges they're going to face is obviously the people are getting restless. Yeah. I just saw youth unemployment is 19.9%. And, you know, whenever they release numbers, I just double it because they're just bullshit. So like, there's no way, whatever, or I half it depending on if it's overly good. But like, you know, they're going to release their GDP and say they grew, you know, 8%, you know, next quarter, which we obviously know that's not the case. I am just blown away at this point that how much longer can you keep the Chinese people, you know, under wraps? Like,
well, fear is an incredibly powerful drug, you know? So, I think that most most young Chinese probably have a very healthy fear of the government. Just from
they definitely do. I know a lot of young Chinese people.
So, you know, it takes quite a while, but there always is a tipping point, you know, like in every great, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but in every sort of global revolution that we've seen, there's always a tipping point, even though the sort of the people in power tend to have like a very scary presence. You know, there's always a tipping point, and you saw it with Arab Spring all the way down to like the French Revolution. Like, there is always a tipping point, and so I'd be interested to see if this is the start of the ball rolling there, or that, you know, the Chinese, the CCP can figure it out for themselves and try to restore order.
Like, it feels like China was the one country that had their people under control, and I think the rest of the world is complete fucking chaos. Like, what we read every day during this podcast of people like calling for civil war in America, it's so scary. I mean, so, you know, this if America was united, this feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity for America to stay strong for another few centuries. If we are united as like a country, because China's on like the precipice of potentially falling apart.
Yeah. And you already see what's happening in Russia. So the two biggest threats that we pretty much had to our sovereignty are basically having an extremely hard time. And like, you know, I think that again, like, which is why it gives me so much, like, it doesn't stress me out necessarily, but seeing how fractured America is really sad, because we could pretty much put a huge lead in front of a lot of different places right now.
Yeah.
And instead we're kind of like slowly shifting down towards that almost.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really do hope that we figure it out at some point, because there is an opportunity to sort of regain the prominence that we maybe had 20, 30 years ago. Like that gap, it obviously shrank a lot when globalism sort of reached its peak, but now that's kind of going away, and there's a lot more nationalism in all places. And so I think that there is a really, really big chance for us to kind of regain that gap, but nobody in America is proud enough of America to actually do that right now, it seems. And so
no one can agree on anything.
Yeah.
Like, I think the only thing we can agree on is NFL should be on every weekend.
Pretty much.
I think that would unite the country.
Yeah, maybe that should be a party, the NFL party. Roger Goodell.
Imagine if there was the NFL party. Roger Goodell may not be the right face, but like Jerry Jones.
Oh my God, yeah.
Jerry Jones ran the NFL party. What's he good for? 40 million votes?
Oh, easy. Yeah, all of Texas and like a lot of the Bible Belt.
If the options are Jerry Jones, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, I'm voting
Jerry's
Jerry
taking
Jones.
a few of them. Yeah, Jerry's taking a lot of the centrists. Jerry's taking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I like football. I want low taxes.
Yeah, low taxes, football, open up, no masks, business. Like, yeah.
Jerry Jones is probably the next president if he ran.
Yeah, I think it will. I think that we are probably going to move to a place where more business people are considered for, like, not pure politicians, but people who have been super successful in some other realm of endeavor. Hopefully we move to that place, because
the problem, I agree, those are the most ideal candidates given the climate. The problem is we're such a tear down society. Like, I even see like every even when I see businesses that are celebrated, like there's amazing entrepreneurs doing crazy things, and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. 2 days later, hit piece.
For sure.
Boom.
Yeah.
Got to take them down.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
Everyone gets taken down.
Yeah.
So when we live in that culture where we can't celebrate, like, we should be protecting our winners, because and this is what other countries do. Like, when they find a champion, you protect them at all costs.
100%.
Because it does change. Like, you think Korea is going to let anything happen to BTS?
No.
It's changed the perception of the entire country because of one band.
Totally. And I don't understand why we don't do it in this country. And I think it's really because the media gets quite a lot of value from tearing people down.
Yeah.
But I do think that we should be more, like, the fact that Elon Musk's faces as much scrutiny as he does is fucking terrible, because that takes away from his brain power to like focus on the problems that are actually at hand.
Yeah.
And that's like
he's solving for our country.
That he's solving for our country and doing here. It's not like he's building all this shit somewhere else. He's doing it for us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really dislike that aspect of the media where they feel like it's necessary to like, and I hate people who like dunk on companies and stuff too. Like, it's just like, you know, if you're actually out there doing something, it deserves to be like revered, not sort of like, I hate the paradigm where it's like, I'm afraid to build something because of what the public perception of it might be.
Well, and I think that in itself is quite scary, because it's going to deter top talent
for sure
from wanting to even share their stories,
or like push the boundaries on what ideas are even possible. Like, you know, if you, I find it really hard to build something like Elon Musk did in the modern day, because when he was building Tesla and when he was building SpaceX and all these things, the media wasn't quite as bad as it is now. Yeah. I'm sure if he was doing it now and he was still in the early night, I don't know if anybody, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your listeners remember this, but Elon Musk was like about to miss payroll on Tesla at many points. And like, the only thing that was out there at the time was a small publication called Valleywag that really didn't make it past the boundaries of Silicon Valley, that really like outed these things. But in the modern day, that would be all over Twitter. That would be all over.
Yeah, he's a terrible CEO.
He's a terrible CEO. Look, he only has, you know, 2 payrolls left. Like, and that kind of thing destroys people. So, you know, I think it becomes it's just a much worse arena to build in when that's the case. And so, yeah, I really do hope, just given what we're seeing globally and how other countries are treating the people that bring a lot of value to them, that it's just obvious to me that we should be supporting our.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always shocked on like how, like, if you just think about like the greatest companies in the world are like, put aside Saudi Aramco, which obviously is not a function of innovation.
Yeah.
But Apple, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, we've basically torn down all those founders.
Of course, and made their lives more difficult at almost every turn. And what's an interesting business to look at that you love and you've mentioned quite a few times is look at how France treats LVMH.
Yeah.
Like actually look at how the French people look at Bernard Arnault, look at the brands that he's built, look at all of what LVMH does for France and how the French government interacts with LVMH.
Yeah.
Like they want LVMH to win because they know that's just mind share. That's
it's
money.
good to export that. Like right now, the perception of America is bad. When you talk, everyone thinks you walk outside, you get shot, and like. But
it's also in comparison. Like I hear that argument, but it's also in comparison to where, because people will be like, oh, like the UK. Well, you go to the UK, you just get stabbed, not shot. Yeah. So it's like.
I guess better to be stabbed than shot.
Yeah, I guess there's a higher likelihood, but it's a lot.
Salman Rushdie survived the stabbing. I don't know if that was a gun he would have.
No, that's fair. So, but like I think that the world in general is pretty fucked up right now. It's very easy to hate America because there's so much surface area to hate. Yeah. There's like an incredible amount of different things that America is not good at, but it's because we're doing such a volume of different things anyway that there is so much to hate. So,
the other interesting, because I totally forgot I wanted to bring this up. So Michael Burry, everyone's favorite investor, he has sold all of his stock. He had a short on Apple, closed it out. He had positions in Alphabet, Meta, and everything. Except he held one and added one position. It's called the Geo Group, and it is a prison operator. So his only position is a prison operator. So he is just long on crime.
Or he's long on like divisiveness in this country that eventually leads to incarceration, Yeah. Which and like at the end of the day, it's quite sad, but the way that the structure of the prison industrial system is, it's quite a lucrative business because in what other business do you have mandated customers that exactly what their customer value will be over time.
Lifetime value is guaranteed.
Lifetime value is a pretty easy math equation for most of your customers.
That's so insane.
And like every aspect of the prison experience is financialized, right? So like even your calls home, even the food, even to put money on your books, the fees that they charge. There's a million ways to take advantage of people who are incarcerated or trapped, basically, to be your customer. Yeah. And so I think that his perspective is probably there's going to be like a pendulum swing of like, we're in an era right now where there's an incredible amount of crime in America across all metropolitan cities for the most part. And so if he believes in a certain level of mean reversion, where like the next wave of politicians will probably be tough on crime, which will lead to a higher level of incarcerations over time, the function of that is just more money in the pockets of these private industries that really take advantage of this kind of thing. And so to me, it makes sense as a trade, because like if you think that if we're in the highest crime right now, and you do believe in like sort of centricism winning the day at a certain point, and people like Chesa-Boudin and Gascon going away and coming more sort of rational thinkers in that space, then for sure the prison population is going to go up. And so it's kind of fucked up like to be sort of playing through that theme, but
I saw an interesting chart. I think it was like, with the exception of 3-4 state, there are more prisons than colleges in most of the country. For sure. Like 97%.
Just think about how much easier it is to get into a prison than a college, Like
what's the Harvard of prisons? Rikers?
Yeah, exactly. It's probably somewhere upstate. Yeah, exactly. Upstate New York, Sing Sing, maybe. Alcatraz.
Oh my God. That's fuck. That's so crazy. That's an amazing statement. All right, we'll end on something light. PG Lang, which is the creative kind of outlet of Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free. And they put out some of the best ads I've ever seen. They dropped I think it's like a commercial for Cash App. And it's a guy explaining to Kendrick Lamar, like his financial situation at his barbershop. And he's explaining it in like kind of slang terms. Kendrick, translates it to like everyone, just like, this is what's happening. And then all of a sudden Ray Dalio pops up giving his advice to the young man. Unbelievable. It's just so clever. And even just getting Ray Dalio to do it, because it's clearly not about money. It's probably more about cultural relevance.
Yeah, Ray Dalio has taken a position that he wants to be like kind of the most culturally relevant thought leader in like the econ and like finance space, which is great. And I think that he's really well equipped to do it. The thing that I find most interesting about this is that Cash App is probably the best consumer technology company at creating cultural moments that exists. I think that for the past, I'm not sure who does this on their team. They deserve every raise that's ever been offered to Cash App, because for 10 years now, almost, maybe less, maybe 5, somewhere between 5 to 10 years, they have thrown incredible parties that I still talk about to this day. They've done incredible content. Like there's one guy that they back on YouTube called Kerwin Frost, and they do his podcast and all of his shows. They've done like random activations in New York City where literally the whole point of the activation was they were just throwing money in the air and like catching. They have done such an incredible job of maintaining virality at a constant clip that I think that their marketing team is probably one of the best consumer technology marketing teams that's ever existed. Yeah,
and it feels like authentic.
It feels authentic, and it's 100% resonative with the exact people that they're going after. Like, for instance, this Kendrick Lamar Ray Dalio thing, not only does it hit on like sort of like the Twitter, like Reddit groups of people that are obviously, as we saw from the previous article, very strong and very powerful. They have that Ray Dalio effect. And then they have like Kendrick Lamar talking to literally anybody else. And the fact that they can bring those two things together creates this space where everybody can sort of participate in almost a way. And so I think that they've done an incredible job of tying culture into finance, into technology, and they probably will continue to do it because they've been doing this for literally 7 years. And
Cash App is a part of Block, right?
Correct.
Square. That's, it's interesting. Like, I was not very bullish on a lot of these fintech companies just because their underlying core business felt rocky to me. But now they've all diversified so much, because Square, when all intents and purposes, was just a payment processor. And now they've clearly diversified. And Cash App, you could argue it's the next PayPal. In terms of like,
I think if you look at like, I forget what the age range is. I think it's like 18 to 30. They have like an extremely high percentage of the volume of dollars that are peer-to-peer sent. It's like, I don't want to misquote it, but like you can Google that stat, and it's very high in Cash App's favor over Venmo, over all of these other platforms.
Wow. Amazing. Well, we're now going to kick it to an incredible interview. We got our good friend Robert Ballin, and he brought the founders of Truff, Nick and Nick, Truff hot sauce, Truff pasta sauce, Truff mayonnaise, truffle oil. Huge fan of the product. Use it in actually my daily cooking. And it's an incredible interview. So let's kick it to that next. All right, Cathy's, we have a very special interview. We talk about this product all the time. I'm a big fan of it. I actually made some pasta the other day using the Truff arrabbiata sauce.
Nice. It's so good.
It's so
Did you
good.
get some? We sent up a...
I just got it.
You got it?
My oldest son, who's like almost 5, he was like, why do you have so much of this? Because you guys sent a very generous box of it. Well, we have Nick and Nick here, the founders of Truff. I guess it started as a hot sauce, but now it's clearly expanding beyond that. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So my introduction to Truff was a deck Aaron Levant showed me and said, you should invest in this. And I was like, I've never really done CPG. I don't really know anything about it. And this is when we were investing in early stage tech. And so we saw like, obviously like outsized returns. And we had never been exposed to like CPG. And I was like, man, I don't know anything about the industry. And like, he's like, well, I want to write a check. I'm going to do this. And I'm trying to get friends involved. I was like, okay, whatever. I probably forgot to follow up. And then I ran into Aaron one day on a flight to Chicago ComplexCon. And I was like, hey, how's that hot sauce business doing? He's like, it's on fire. And I was like, fuck, really?
Good looking out. I think the deck you saw was not like kind of like the angel round. It was kind of like after our first year and a half of business.
Yeah, you guys were already selling places.
Out there. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, I think you had already launched and like you're on Amazon, you were in certain stores.
Right.
Yeah, there was definitely some momentum already. Yeah.
That's
But
funny.
like, you know, I was just like tangentially following it through him. And then I was like, oh, how's it doing? And then obviously I see it. And he's like, no, the business is on fire. I was like, oh, well, I've, you know,
Great.
I passed on Uber too. No big deal.
Uber, Truff, like what's
It's
next?
a good thing if I pass. It's actually a compliment if I pass.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny, Dee, is because how I ended up, you know, with Truff, the Truff guys is, you know, me being in social media and stuff like that and having huge accounts.
Yeah.
I would see them everywhere. And then I know the guys and stuff. We started talking about, you know, Truff and stuff, and how they started was obviously social media. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be fucking interesting to hear what these guys talk about.
Yeah. So
I mean, definitely.
I'd love to hear the backstory because I know you guys have the account Sauce. Did that come first or the brand came first?
The account actually came first. So Nick and I, we met in college.
Where'd you guys go?
Cal State Fullerton.
Okay.
And we had just hit it off through various business ventures, working on different projects. I was friends with his sister, who kind of introduced me to him because she heard me talking about all these stupid ideas. She's like, you and my brother would love each other. He's always talking about crazy shit too. And at that time, we were just very immersed in social media and seeing these brands kind of explode on the internet through growth hacking, digital marketing, etc. And one of our little hustles at the time was kind of scooping up these OG handles.
Yeah.
So we'd got Sauce.
So what year was that?
2015.
Right when we graduated, 15.
Okay.
Yeah, 2015. And it was organic. We didn't like buy it or anything. We just scooped it up. And as soon as we got it, we're like, yo, this is cool. Let's just build this really dope account. We started posting content we thought would resonate well with like the pop culture foodie. So women with food, rappers with food, burger porn.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a complex vibe.
Yeah.
With a food integration was the look we were going for.
Complex was having its like Instagram moment, like where it took off and was like the focus of like pop culture. And we kind of like, not necessarily piggybacked off it, but like saw that there was an audience for like cool shit happening in culture, but we kind of emphasized food because it was like at Sauce. It just like made sense.
That's amazing. And so did you start that with the intention of like, wonder what gets traction and then we'll launch a product?
It was more of just this cool online Instagram account, and it started to get a lot of traction. Some celebrities started following us, and some of our posts started to go viral. And it got to the point where we're like, okay, are we just going to be like an online IG account called Sauce, or can we use this as a platform and create a brand and, you know, eventually sell product through this channel?
Yeah.
And then that led us to, you know, wanting to create a sauce brand. So we looked at barbecue sauces, dressings, hot sauces. And at the time, you know, hot sauce was having its moment in culture. Hoi Fong was all over the place. Beyonce was talking about having hot sauce in her bag, et cetera, et cetera. So we looked deeper at that category. The market, you know, multi-billion-dollar market, huge opportunity. And then we looked deeper at the category. We didn't see any top shelf hot sauce brand that existed. Yeah. Most of the brands out there were legacy brands that have been around for a while. They didn't understand social media. They didn't understand growth hacking, digital marketing, et cetera. None of them were direct to consumer e-com brands.
They weren't culturally relevant either.
Exactly. Yeah. So for us, we're like, wow, there's no top shelf hot sauce brand. No one's doing the Ciroc of hot sauce, which was a brand that we kind of looked up to in college, right? Yeah. Diddy, this whole cultural phenomenon, integrating it well with music videos, et cetera. And none of these brands were really in tune with paid media, digital marketing, e-com, et cetera. So for us, we're like, okay, shit, let's create like the world's first luxury hot sauce brand. And, you know, how are we going to really make it an authentic product with a great recipe with integrity? We didn't just want to say, hey, we're a luxury hot sauce brand. We're just
expensive.
Yeah, we're just expensive, buy our shit. So we really spent a lot of time developing the brand, the formula. And Nick, he had a powdered beverage brand in college, so he had a lot of experience with product formulation, developing. So we had like a little bit of a understanding of where to start, but it was really just us for 2 years, like heads down, figuring this thing out on our own.
Wow. And how did you launch?
We launched through Insta. Like we kind of took like a decent seating list for the most part from like Aaron and John and like some friends we had and people we had met through like the DMs on @sauce, and just like put together this really nice package with like kind of this handwritten note and just like sent it to a shitload of people.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, check us out. Like,
I remember we got some in our office, and everyone had took like one chip and like tried it.
And we actually cryovac these like plantain chips. That's like our official taste test.
Yeah,
was like these Trader Joe's plantain chips.
Yeah,
and with like a little bowl actually that you would pour the sauce in and like try it with the note. And we sent it to a bunch of people, and you know we were strictly e-com when we launched, nothing else, no
on your
retail.
own site.
Yeah, just our site, and it just kind of like, I mean, it's been 5 years now, but it's just like snowballed ever since.
And what was the original retail price point?
So it was $17.99 when we launched. I think that was with free shipping, if I remember.
Yep.
And you know, as we've grown, we've been able to like scale our supply chain, but B, like enter more retail doors. And our sweet spot now is like $14.99.
Got it.
Online's different because you have shipping and whatnot, but we're like 3 times the category. You know.
So what is like a Tapatio or Tabasco?
2, 3. It depends where and what size and all that stuff, but anywhere from $2 to $4 or $5 maybe.
And how did you end up on Truffle?
So, in our pursuit to make this thing luxurious and you know upscale and top shelf, we looked at high end ingredients. So it's like we were talking about earlier. It's like we can just put peppers in a jar and be like, hey, we're expensive because we're cool. No, it's got to actually be cool. And so like when we launch anything, like any new category, new product, new SKU, it's always like the formula has to be we cuss on here, right?
Yes, of course.
It has to be fucking amazing.
You want some tequila too?
Yeah, let's get to it. Why aren't we?
Yeah, we can.
Let's tell them a little something.
Pop the Lo Siento.
Tell Javier to bring us some.
Javier, where are you at?
Just text him.
So we looked at ingredients that were elevated, and you know some of the main ones we looked at, like saffron and caviar. Honestly, things that sounded cool, and like truffle oil sounded cool to us, and like. So we went down this like rabbit hole of like how can we like make a hot sauce that has like these crazy good ingredients, but also has to taste amazing. And like in the culinary world, you don't really mix like truffle and spice. Like it's never been done. Truffle's so delicate, it's rare, it's expensive. Like why burn it and kill it? And so we like went down this like deep kind of R&D. Nick was mentioning like 2 years of just like taking ingredients that we thought tasted cool and tasted good and like found different ratios where we can incorporate them all, and truffle was kind of like the hero ingredient, and that basically built the brand around that concept. Named it Truff, like really like made a bold stroke of what we do.
And I think what's interesting is like truffle doesn't really enter young people's life because more than likely they can't afford it when they go. You know, I remember the first time. This was at Pache on Laurel Canyon. I don't know if I was on a date or with a friend at dinner, and they go, "Oh, we have some white truffle in season. Would you like some on your pizza?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
And it says market price.
Yeah, it said MP on there.
MP means more, please.
And I was probably like 22, 23, just graduated college. And we just started 5-4, so like no money. And I was like, oh my God, this bill's like $250. And I was like, I just got a cheese pizza with fucking white truffle on it. And that was my introduction to truffle. And I enjoyed it. And obviously, like when I could afford it, I would order it. And then when I saw like the oils kind of coming out in the market and people, how they were using it. But I think the hot sauce actually just gave it like a whole new category, right? Like,
for sure.
Because most young people are not experiencing truffle at all.
No, truffle's not necessarily accessible or attainable. And one thing we learned as we started to learn a lot about the truffle world is that it's very like mafia-esque in a way. Like there's a few companies that control truffle. The supply chain's very shady.
Yeah. I was just going to ask that. Like, where do you get it? I mean, obviously, you don't say it.
We don't share that.
Yeah. But
there's like, for example, there's Chinese truffle, right? Truffle that comes from China. It's not very potent.
It's like dirt.
It's like dirt.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll ship that to Italy. Then people will sell those truffles out of Italy as product of Italy.
Yeah.
And that's like one of like hundreds of things happening in the truffle industry.
I have 2 experiences. That one, my friend has a restaurant in New York, and the truffle dealer came to their restaurant, and I remember I was like, this dude just pulled up with like 50 grand in truffle
Yeah.
in a
Oh, big time.
backpack.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, what the hell?
Oh, yeah,
Lifts the
I was like, we
trunk.
should rob this guy. And then we were in Tuscany and we went truffle hunting.
Oh yeah.
That is the biggest scam of all time.
Did you have the poodle with you?
Yeah. First of all, I was like,
Some dude's like buried it real quick in front of the dog.
Yes, I vividly remember this. And I was telling my wife, my friend Brian, who listens to the podcast in the restaurant business, his wife, and a few other friends.
What is that?
that we all went truffle hunting. Yeah, just bring it. We all went truffle hunting, and
Thank you.
Cheers,
we
boys.
ended up.
Well, there's nothing in there yet. You
Yeah.
can't say cheers yet.
The ice.
Is the white one over there? Or yeah.
So we ended up going truffle hunting, and I vividly remember I would drink the reposado if you're gonna do the Lo Siento on the rocks.
I like Blanco.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like
I'm not a
blonde,
Blanco,
too.
I'm a
Yeah,
Blanco
yeah.
guy.
And so we end up going truffle hunting, and obviously the dog's finding the truffle everywhere. And I'm like, do you guys really believe
Yeah,
this
yeah,
shit? Like, this is such a scam. Like,
100%.
I remember the dog's name, Selly. Selly. And I was like, how does Selly know where every single piece of truffle is?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is such like a Disneyland
It's like an
bullshit.
Easter egg hunt.
There's a
that they
milk
just,
bone like rubber banded
Yeah.
onto like some.
Hey, you
He's
want
giving us all this like history lesson on truffles and how they hunt, and I'm like, this guy's a scam. But a truffle in itself, the industry feels like a black hole.
It very much, and the majority of like truffle oils use like a synthetic essence, which
Yeah.
is like has nothing to do with truffle at all. It's just
Yeah.
like a flavor compound that's
so
produced.
Is your price justified given
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're not, because I
Our
know
product is
truffle oil
very
you can.
expensive to make.
Got it. Okay,
Very.
because I know truffle oil you can get the synthetic truffle oil for pretty inexpensive.
Can we
Even
pause?
cheers.
Pause
Cheers.
for a cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
No, the synthetics are still expensive,
Got it.
but you can kind of tell when something's.
That's good.
That's great.
I hadn't tried the white one before. I like that.
But interesting. And so you get traction online, and then how quickly do you end up in retail stores? And who are the first retailers to carry the product?
So for the first year, it was primarily all through our website, truff.com. And we had some premier retailers that we wanted to, get into. Neiman Marcus, for example, Dean and DeLuca, for example, and some other like smaller ma and pa, higher end wine and cheese shops, like
Okay.
Wally's,
Yeah,
Beverly
great.
Hills, etc., like influential kind of accounts. And then we ended up getting picked up on Oprah's Favorite Things
Oh, wow.
after our first year.
How did that happen? Was that
Yeah,
just
that was
organic?
hot.
Organic.
Yeah, organic. I think their team saw an
It's on
ad on Facebook.
Wow.
Like,
And
you
they
want to
reached
talk about
out.
like acquisition, like
yeah.
spend ROAS,
Yeah,
like,
right. The
just
ROAS, right?
With that,
Well, that was a different era, right? Where he's
Way
probably
different.
yeah, customer
but, like,
acquisition
that
was cheap.
moment for
Yeah.
the brand. was
And you
like,
know the thing too is like we're talking about branding and stuff like that. The way you guys came out was totally different because you guys obviously understood your product, but understood on how to place it on certain foods to make it eye catching. Like those ads didn't look like ads, but they were. I mean, people were watching the whole thing. So, in seeing that and obviously knowing you guys, like. I know you guys talked about the complex thing, but was that something, and you guys continue to do, was that something you're like, hey, we just want the eyeballs to be on it, or are we going purchasing, and being a D2C?
Back then, I think like our initial strategy was like heavy viral video view campaigns
Got it.
that would rack up,
Mhm.
a ton of views, a really good hook in the beginning. And, we had some videos, 5-10 million views, and we would, retarget all the video viewers.
Wow.
But a lot of them were just very compelling visuals that caught the viewers' attention right away. And then it made them hungry, and then
Right.
it intrigued them. They're like, what's this truffle sauce? Like truffle sauce? Shit, it's kind of making me hungry. Let me check it out.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, we basically ended up converting them. But I think a lot of our early content was just making people's mouth water, getting them like hooked
Yeah.
early on. And it worked for us.
I mean, it worked
we were
because
focused on value, like providing actual visual value. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't about like it was never like, hey, buy this, hey, link in bio, hey,
Right.
20% off. It was like, hey, look at how cool this is and
Yeah.
how great this is, and like look at what we're doing, and like talk about like it was value. We only cared about people actually getting a positive experience from what they saw that came out from us, and if they wanted to buy, like great.
And
Yeah.
then after Oprah's Favorite Thing, what happened?
So in conjunction with the Oprah announcement, her list drops on Amazon. So we were kind of always like, we're not ever going to go on Amazon. We're going to go all truff.com and then eventually go into retail. But for us, we're like, okay, let's try out this Amazon thing. Let's figure out FBA. And after the first year on the list, like Truff became the #1 best-selling hot sauce on Amazon. We just broke all these records, and then that kind of like led us into a new e-com stratosphere, and then eventually that led into new retail accounts, etc.
Yeah, like that was kind of our, like retail was always a slow drip for us. Like Nick mentioned, like Neiman Marcus and Wally's and Dean DeLuca, and like the high end, very much like aspirational type environments where people could afford an $18 hot sauce.
Yeah.
But as we grew and as we grew in retail, we like would get wider. So like at one of our trade shows, Wegmans on the East Coast, which is like a premier retailer,
Great.
picked us up early, and we were like, hey, like we don't like we were very naive and didn't know who Wegmans was, which is embarrassing, and B, we didn't work with grocery stores because to us that wasn't cool at the time. And we literally told the head buyer at Wegmans, who's like runs the show, who's like a god in the industry, like, hey, we don't work with grocery stores. Whoa, we're Wegmans. We were like, what?
He was confused. He was like, do you not know who? He was like pulling up Wegmans on his phone, like showing us, and we're like,
he's a great dude.
Yeah.
But it was just like we were just
so
naive. It was like
yeah.
our naivete. And then
Yeah.
so that was kind of our first grocery entrance. And then Whole Foods, Southern Pacific region, tried a few stores. And then that went crazy. And then they went all of this region and then national. And then when you're national with Whole Foods, you're in a lot of different distribution centers that, other good retailers can pull from. And so it was just like a very brick by brick build. But now that's, obviously like now we're in like 15,000 plus stores.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And then what's kind of from a product line future? Like was pasta sauce the next after hot sauce?
Mm-hmm.
Pasta, mayo, truffle oil.
Yeah, I went pasta, and then they actually all came out in like a 6-month period, but that was just coincidence. It wasn't like, oh, let's blitz the market. Our whole thing is like less is more. We modeled Truff off of brands like Red Bull, like Cholula, like one SKU for 30 years.
Coca-Cola.
Just Coke, but Coke's obviously become
now, but for 100 years they sold only one thing.
And we wanted to do that
and
like do one thing great. And like a lot of people extend their line just because they need revenue, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that just speaks to the inefficiency of their hero SKU. And we didn't want to like need to keep launching things to have a business. Yeah. But these things came by like customer demand and like buyer demand, trends, like things that made a lot of data sense.
Got it. And so do you see yourself expanding further now, or do you like you found your SKUs and you're happy with them?
I think it's going to be like a pretty tight operation from a product perspective. When we do look at other categories in our space, like for example, pasta sauce, mayonnaise, truffle oil, we've kind of built this, playbook with hot sauce. And when we look at these other categories, we're asking ourselves, are these high velocity categories? Are these categories that could be in every household in America that people are consuming on a regular basis? Can we innovate in this category? Is there something we can offer that's value to the consumer from a flavor perspective? Or, can we do what we're doing with hot sauce in this category from a content marketing perspective and really try to like disrupt every category that we are going into? Because a lot of these brands in these categories, they've been doing the same thing for 50, 100 years. Yeah. So for us to enter that, we want to make sure, like Nick mentioned earlier, there's really true value to the consumer in many different aspects.
And so in your guys' eyes, like what does end goal look like? Is it being acquired by like a huge food conglomerate? Is it you guys continue to do this business for the rest of your life? Like, what do you guys want to do?
So we try not to get like too far ahead of ourselves. What we focus on every day is like building an amazing, profitable, here to stay for generations business. Like, I think now a lot of people are chasing like the quick buck, the quick acquisition, the quick like, how can we do this quickly? And they have other things that they're like trying to get to. Yeah. For us, it's like we don't overextend on like the vision in terms of like we have to do this by this date. It's more so like let's build an amazing business. Like let's just do that. Let's do that. And we've done that since day one. We've always been profitable. We've never like raised crazy capital just to like fake growth.
You've raised once or twice?
Very little cap. Like our raise to total revenue is we wouldn't believe. Like it sounds like a lie. Yeah. And that's just from being very scrappy, very disciplined, very patient, and very focused on like a slow brick by brick build. And so like, you know, who knows what'll happen one day, but right now we're focused on just like having a business that we don't ever have to sell.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so if you were giving advice, because a lot of our listeners do have CPG businesses, and you're giving someone advice who's trying to break in, what would be your one word of wisdom?
First, I think patience is one that like we've really, really leaned into. I think people, you know, they want to be like the cool entrepreneur a year into their business. They want to do a lot of things that they haven't really like earned. And I think like for us, it was always about building silently in the background, letting our brand and our company kind of be the thing that people took note, and eventually you'll find out who's behind it. And also I think there are a lot of businesses out there that should have never been started. And if you're really going to jump into something, it's great that you have passion about something, you want to start a company, but really make sure it's something that has an opportunity to be successful, because you know, we've seen a lot of brands in our space and they're cool ideas, but from the beginning, it's just like, we know that it's just going to be a very tough battle.
Basic gross margin tells you like that's not ever going to work.
Yeah.
You know, even not only at scale, but today.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's to Nick's point, it's like people I think jump in quick, and there's this thing in kind of the entrepreneur world, like the minimum viable product, just get it out there, see what happens. But for us, it was like, no, sharpen the axe. We would have waited another 2 or 3 years to launch if we didn't feel the product was right, the packaging was right, the positioning was right. Like our biggest thing in CPG marketing is positioning. Like, who are you against your category? And why does that category need that, or can that succeed in, you know, X category?
Yeah. I mean, you guys found a category that's sleepy, that's on grocery shelves, which is so hard to find.
For sure. And like, you know, again, a lot of businesses can be 1, 2, 5, maybe $10 million businesses, but it's very hard for them to get past that. Like to get into traditional grocery.
Yeah.
Is where, you know, mass is, right? If you can sell it at Costco or in a bodega in New York, you're typically going to have a business that could work in a big way. Yeah. But a lot of brands in like emerging food and beverage are very, like the market itself can never get them past, you know, 10 million, for example.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things you guys do too is the experience, right? Like when you order Truff, the experience is it comes in a nice little box. You know, the bottles are really nice. I mean, even in the, you know, the
it's like an
sauce.
Apple experience for hot sauce.
Exactly.
So that's one of the boxes we checked on like e-com strategy, like treating the customer like gold, being very like our customer service is insane. Like we would want to answer in like 5 minutes when we launched, like minimum. Like bottle broken, cool. Like not happy, full refund. Like it wasn't about, oh, we're gonna lose $17 on that order. It's about people being truly fulfilled and satisfied with our brand.
Yeah.
You know,
that's amazing. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys for coming. I always have to ask this.
Don't do it. Don't do it, D.
I don't care if it's a luxury brand or not. I always ask for a discount code for whoever comes on. So do you have a group chat discount code?
We'll make one.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make one.
Okay. Use the code group chat. Head over to truff.com.
When does this drop?
Tonight.
Oh shit.
I can do that right now.
Yeah. Okay. We'll make one. Yeah. We got you.
Okay.
You got him.
You can't say no on the spot.
Say no
It's because we're sipping.
Gotta have a drink under. So guys, if you wanted to try Truff, this is your chance. Use the code group chat. Thank you guys for coming. It's an incredible story. You know, I know how hard, I have a lot of friends in CPG, like to get your guys' distribution awareness is damn near impossible. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Amazing.
Great. All right, Zach, thank you for joining us. Always insightful. I think your line of the day was definitely, it's easier to get into prison than into college. High acceptance rate at prisons. So incredible and insightful as ever. And thanks for helping us out today.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to come back.
Great. We will see you guys Thursday at our party.